This week on the Four Rivers Ag Report, does it pay to buy or rent? Well, I guess that really depends on the price now, doesn't it? Also, we have a ton of options for the wannabe farmer. And what color alert do you use for a lost emu? All that and much more on the Four Rivers Ag Report. Hi, and welcome to the Four Rivers Ag Report. I'm Fred Peralta. What a week. It was so nice outside we had to add an extra day to the year just to enjoy it. I hope everyone made good use of their leap day, and if Sadie Hawkins was involved in your plans, I hope he said yes. Oh, and to my almost leap year baby, happy birthday, Laura. But onto some serious stuff about making a living from farming. As we will report later, no one, and probably not even the USDA, knows for sure how much of what will be planted, when it will be planted, and how much anyone will pay for what is planted. So how do you figure out what to pay to plant that which you want to plant? Are you confused yet? So am I. Researchers have done some number crunching, and the answer is, of course, it depends. I've talked recently to Gary Schnecke, a U of I ag economist, about when it pays to cash rent. Gary, your research suggests the higher percentage of cash rented acres in a farming operation, the more likely it is to suffer when periods of low commodity prices happen. Why is that?
Yeah, that is true. And what happens is you're generally substituting share rent acres, which vary. When commodity prices go down, the share rent to the landlord goes down. Well, with cash rents, it always stays the same. So if something bad happens, like lower commodity prices or lower yields, cash rent landlords or cash rent land or farms with higher amounts of cash rent are going to face more adverse incomes than farms that have either owned or share rent land.
Have you done any economic modeling to check this out?
Yeah, we've looked at cash rent and share rent farms, or different degrees under what we would expect to be most likely prices for this coming year, 540 corn. And pretty much all farms, if we have normal yields, will be pretty profitable for 2012. We also looked at if we have prices going back to what we consider the long-run equilibrium, which would be 450 corn. And in those cases, we're back to income levels pre-2005 for farms with the average breakdown of share and cash rent. And farms with large amounts of cash rent and high cash rents will face pretty large low incomes and negative incomes in that case.
So is commodity prices the variable that farmers need to watch?
Commodity pricing is one that, when we're setting cash rents, is one that you'd want to look at. And in general, you're setting cash rents in fall prior to when the year in which production occurs, and looking at what futures markets or what projections are for the coming year is a good thing. And if we're looking at commodity prices, lower than where we're at now in the $4.50 or even $3 range, we might have to adjust those cash rents down.
How does a farmer factor in the wide variability in commodity prices to manage the risk associated with setting cash rents in the fall?
Yeah, well, you have to do it when you negotiate the rent and look at what the market is suggesting. The other thing that people can do is use a variable cash rent, and that variable cash rent varies the cash rent payments based on yields and prices. And in using that, it really takes out some of the issues associated with setting a cash rent a year early when you really don't know what the cash or prices are going to be a year from now.
We talked about the farmers. What about the landlords? Are there considerations that they need to think about as it pertains to cash rents in the future?
Landlords need to think about, or many landlords have been raising cash rents, which in the past couple of years, agriculture's been profitable. But again, if we see commodity prices come down to lower $4.50 long run, or $3.50 or $3.80, a lot of these cash rents will have to be adjusted downward.
So if cash renting can affect a farmer's profit margin, does your work suggest the farmer should consider buying land rather than cash renting?
Buying farmland's a good thing. You have to watch the cash flow and make sure that the debt levels are appropriate, or you don't want to take on too much debt because of the risk that it places the farm. But operations that have bought farms over time have done reasonably well, and averaging or sort of buying farmland when the financial position is there is a good strategy.
Thanks, Gary, for helping us out today.
Welcome.
Well, this winter I didn't have to use our fireplace too often, but when I did, someone would often say, "Hey, put another log on the fire." But Monica Becker is here and has news that that expression might have to change to put another hay log on the fire. Monica?
Thanks, Fred. Now, this was the week that USDA released their latest planting estimates, and it seems a lot of you plan on planting what we thought you'd be planting: corn. As a matter of fact, the USDA estimates that 94 million acres of corn will be planted in 2012. That's the most corn acres in 68 years since 1944. Soybean acreage is estimated to be unchanged at 75 million acres, but that is down 1.6 million acres from last year's intended planting numbers. Now, what can we do with all that extra corn? Possibly put it in our tanks. The EPA has signed off on the health assurances of E15, the ethanol gasoline mixture, meaning that using E15 fuels had no emissions of concern that were significantly different than E10 fuels, the present blend available to consumers. E15 was seen as being important in breaking the blend wall being the point where more and more ethanol can be mixed with gasoline for fuels. Industry officials say this sets the stage for E20 and potentially E30 blends. More and more ethanol means more and more corn to produce it, at least for now. But E15 isn't going to be available quite yet. E15 will have to get more approvals from individual states, retailers, and finally the consumers before we start seeing that option at the pump. One option we won't be seeing anytime soon is anything. Now this hits close to home. U.S. sugar imports from Mexico have dropped 40% due to the worst drought on record in the Mexican growing areas. And the U.S. buys almost 99% of the Mexican sugar output. Last year, Mexico exported 1.4 million tons of sugar, as compared to 800,000 tons of sugar this year. Mexico did grow more than that total, but keeps a substantial amount for domestic use. The cause? You guessed it. La Nina. Now, if you thought that only people with allergies worried about pollen, think again. The issue of drifting pollen ended up in and out of court this week. The Organic Seed Growers and Trade Association, along with others, sued Monsanto, seeking a preemptive ruling preventing Monsanto from suing them if pollen from the company's genetically modified plants happened to drift into their fields. The growers worried that Monsanto, who aggressively protects their patents on genetically modified seeds, would sue them if any genetic traits were found in plants they grew, even if their original seeds were not Monsanto seed. A classic David versus Goliath. The judge in New York federal court found that the plaintiff's allegations were unsubstantiated, given that not one single plaintiff had been sued. The ruling also found that the plaintiffs overstated the magnitude of Monsanto's patent enforcement. So for now, the score: Goliath won, David zip. Well, you could be worried about pollen of a different sort, and the state may help you. The Illinois Department of Agriculture announced that Illinois has been awarded more than $630,000 in federal funds to strengthen the competitiveness of the state's special crop industry. The program will help Illinois farmers create markets, reach new customers, and provide increased access to local foods. The Illinois Department of Agriculture is looking for proposals that would reach across a number of different areas, from improving efficiency and reducing costs, developing good agriculture practices and enhancing food safety systems, to advancing children and adult nutritional knowledge and consumption of specialty crops. More information can be found on the IDOA's website. The deadline is March 15th. And now the USDA has created new tools for people who want to become farmers and ranchers. A new web tool called starttofarm.gov is an online database connecting beginning farmers and ranchers with available programs, information, and resources. There is even a thinking about farming tutorial that helps you decide if you can cut the mustard or at least plant the corn. And finally, one farmer didn't wait for the state or anyone to help him with a stack of wet hay. A Maine farmer, Peter Bragdon, had been haying for more than 30 years. He used the hay for feed, but as with all hay producers, he worried about hay ruined by unexpected rain. In any year, he claims he usually lost approximately a quarter of his hay crop due to wet weather. Wet hay can't be sold for feed, and therefore the prices plummet. The thought of that soggy grass made him burning mad, so he came up with the thought of burning the hay in log form. He took the wet hay, which was no longer useful as feed, and made 4 by 12 grassy logs to be used in fireplaces and wood-burning stoves. One bale of hay produces 8 logs. The logs will burn about 3 hours, and he claims that the hay logs produce more BTU per pound than wood. But before you rush to make logs while the sun shines, Bragdon is awaiting a patent on his process. Now, how did he come up with this red-hot idea? Bragdon says when you're on a tractor 10 to 12 hours a day, you have a lot of time to think. Well, I think that's all I have for this week. I'm Monica Becker for the Four Rivers Ag Report.
You know, on the Four Rivers Ag Report, we're always looking for news that is of interest to the agricultural and the rural communities. Every week we scour the local papers, the state and national websites. We talk to lots and lots of people every day looking for information that will help and or entertain you. There is one more way that we can find out the latest news, topics, trends, and events that are part of your life. You can tell us. We'd love to hear from you about what's going on in your town, on your farm, or even on your neighbor's farm. If you got a topic you'd like us to talk about, let us know. I probably won't know the answer, but I probably know people who do. Please let us know what is happening. You can call us at 217-581-7245. You can email us at weiu@weiu.net. We're on Facebook at WEIU TV, Public Broadcast Station. And if you tweet, we're on Twitter at WEIU1. So now that you got our number, don't be a stranger. Well, with me today is Maria Berngen. She's an agricultural instructor at Lakeland College, and you're here to talk about some sort of open house, right?
Right, we're having our very first annual Ag Open House. It'll be on Friday, March 9th at our building on the Lakeland College campus.
Now, what is an Ag Open House and who should be thinking about attending it?
That's a really good question.
I'm glad I asked it then.
We're providing this opportunity for our high school juniors and seniors who are enrolled in ag programs and their teachers to come to campus to learn a little bit about our programs, all the different degree options we have in ag, the kinds of careers that those degrees can lead to, as well as learn a little bit about how they could get involved in our campus outside of the classroom.
Now, Lakeland has a really excellent agricultural program. I'm really impressed by it. But what are some of the events that are going to be taking place at this Ag Open House?
We're going to give the students the chance to attend different sessions based on their interests. So we have sessions specifically for horticultural production and landscaping, and for ag power technology, for our John Deere ag power program, as well as agriculture production and business with transfer options and non-transfer options.
So how does a student decide which one that they want to attend, or can they attend multiple ones?
They'll be able to attend multiple ones. They'll be
good.
able to elect a rotation to hit all the ones they're interested in.
Yeah, because there's nothing like a 17-year-old that says, I've decided everything I want to do in my life, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, high schoolers, what sort of things go through a high schooler's mind about when they're thinking about getting involved in ag as a career? I mean, you know, what do you think about?
Well, the one thing that a lot of people think about is the number of farms isn't as high as it used to be.
Right.
So are there careers for me in ag? Actually, about 1/4 of all of the jobs in Illinois are ag-related in some fashion.
That high?
It's that high.
Wow.
And there are studies done by the U.S. government and Purdue University showing that in the next 10 to 12 years, there will be an excess of jobs available for college graduates with ag degrees beyond the number of people available to fill them. So if they're looking for a job, this is a really good time to get involved in agriculture.
And who isn't looking for a job these days?
Exactly.
Well, so, you know, on March 9th, there you have the open house and event. Where is it going to be at?
It'll be at the West Classroom building on the Lakeland campus. That'll be where we start. And then students who are interested in John Deere will be taken to the John Deere building, which is separated from the rest of the ag program geographically, but then we'll get them back together in the West building as well.
And I know high school students, well, teachers are more easily motivated, but high school students, I don't know if I should, what's in it for them?
Besides great information and a chance to get away from school for a little bit, we're going to serve pizza for everybody, and all of the high school students will get a Lakeland College Ag t-shirt for free.
I mean, free t-shirts and pizza are enough to get students to do almost anything.
Absolutely.
So one more time, what is, when are the dates, what are the events, and if somebody's interested in finding out more, how can they do so?
Sure. So it's on Friday the 9th of March at the Lakeland College campus. It's for high school juniors, seniors, and their ag teachers. So if a student finds out about this and is interested, they should talk with their teacher and see if they could get signed up for it. The sooner they register, the better, because we're trying to get our numbers determined for that, but it's not too late. And I've given you the link that they can use to get to the registration site.
And if they're interested, it's right there. Or maybe right, whatever. Anyway, Maria, thank you so much for coming.
Sure, thank you very much for having me.
We haven't seen much snow or ice out this winter, and it's still winter, buddy. But if you had a window, say 30,000 years ago, and you looked out it, you might have seen enough ice to last well, Cameron Craig explains in this week's Under the Four Rivers Sky.
As a child during one of my family's excursions through Illinois, I remember yelling from the back seat, "Dad, why is it so flat and boring here?" My father, a farmer from Indiana, answered, "Thousands of years ago, glaciers towered above the landscape and shaped the land we see today. The new landscape, as old as 15,000 years, set the foundation of agriculture here in central Illinois and the Midwest."
Glacial formation is dependent upon the Earth's climate shifting from hot to extremely cold. 4 glacial periods have occurred recently over the last 650,000 years, and there is evidence that the cycle of glacial formation has occurred for more than 2 million years.
The glacier, the ice, forms as a result of a change in Earth's climate. We're not exactly sure why the climate changes from hot to cold. but it has done that periodically over the last 2 million years and before that too. So what happens is the temperatures go down, the snow and ice that was stored over a winter time doesn't quite melt back as far as it had the year before, and this goes on and on for a period of a couple thousand years. And before you know it, the snow line that usually melts back in North America up to Hudson Bay, well, it's down in Canada and a little bit below that, as evidenced by past glaciations over the last 2 million years.
Two glacial periods modified the Illinoisan landscape within the last 300,000 years. The first was the Illinoisan glaciation that occurred between 300,000 to 175,000 years before present. And the second was the Wisconsin glaciation between 75,000 to 15,000 years before present.
The last glaciers that came through the area came down in a lobe that came through Wisconsin and Michigan. And this glacier episode is called the Wisconsin glaciation, and it covers basically the northeast quarter of the state. There was another glacial episode previous to that that did cover almost all of the state. The one that covered nearly all the state was called the Illinoisan glacial episode, and it went all the way down to the Shawnee Hills and covered everything but just a fragment on the west side of the state and on the northwest side of the state.
Each glaciation provided a certain soil makeup that helped to establish a foundation for agriculture in this area. The quality of the soil is dependent upon the age of the glacial period.
In central Illinois, you have two different glacial ages exposed at the surface. You have the Wisconsin glacier deposits, which are those that are probably less than 15,000 years old in most places. And these are found in a line roughly going from Terre Haute over to Decatur and then about straight north. So that northeast segment of the state is covered by these young glacial deposits. The remainder of the state is covered by glacial deposits that have been sitting there for at least 175,000 years. So those that have been sitting around longer have been more weathered, and the minerals that provide nutrients to the soil have been more leached from the deposits, and also more clay has been left behind. So the older deposits, which cover about 2/3 of the state or so, are poor quality soils.
Some might continue to say that central Illinois is flat and boring, but without the Earth's shifting climate, we might have ended up doing something other than agriculture. That's it for me this week. Protect our home and always say thank you to our farmers.
And finally, two things. While it hasn't made it out in milk cartons yet, someone has been missing for quite a while now, and it has authorities worried. In South Hero, Vermont, there's a missing emu. Not Elmo, an emu, that shorter ostrich-type bird-type thingy. It seems that a local man bought 3 emus thinking they would make great pets for his grandchildren. Well, of course, one of the birds escaped and has been on the lam for the last 5 weeks. It's been spotted all over the place. But the last place it was seen was at a local school where it stared at the principal through whose window. And it avoided getting lassoed by the janitor, who was using an extension cord, by the way. Well, when contacted about the lost emu, the owner told a local TV station that emus and children don't really mix, and that he's taken out an ad in the local newspaper. If you look it up in the Lost and Found section, he advertised, "Free emu if you can capture it." But now I have to get to something just a little bit serious. For the next several weeks, WEIU is going to be running the Leap into Spring Pledge campaign. There will be all sorts of excellent programming on during this time, and we're hoping that you show how much you value WEIU by making a pledge. We've made a major commitment to serving our area, and it's reflected in the wide assortment of local programming we do. This program is an example of something you won't see anywhere else. If you can find it in your heart and in your wallet to help us out, we'd really appreciate it. And in an era where people are worried about government waste, trust me, we can squeeze a dime until it's a quarter. The easiest way to help us out is to call later on tonight or go online anytime at weiu.net and look for the Pledge Now button. And for that, we thank you. Well, that's it for this week. Work hard, be safe, and enjoy the beautiful sunsets. I'm Fred Peralta, and thanks for watching the Four Rivers Ag Report.